you can see the entirety of Battle for Azeroth's content without hitting the enter button. You can see every dungeon, you can see every raid, you can do every quest, every scenario without pressing the enter button. Can you do that on Classic? No. What's up, everybody? It's Tsar. I apologize for not uploading as much. Still got some things going on, but hopefully I can get back into a somewhat regular uploading schedule. But it's also hard. It's been difficult. First off, in the background, there's some classic World of Warcraft gameplay of me going through Numbergone. I'm currently in the process of leveling a Holy Paladin. That is what I want to main in Classic WoW. And I'm not playing retail, which is what I wanted to talk about. I'm going to talk about Classic in another video, but I want to talk about retail. Because, honestly, I have been extremely displeased with 8.3. I don't know why I'm wearing these. You'll have to ignore the headset head. I've been trying to grind out levels in Classic. So, let me talk about why 8.3 has been extremely disappointing to me. And you know what? It's been BFA. I look at the response and the love from everybody when I did my reaction to the opening of BFA. You know, like as an Alliance character, like I've been maining Alliance since Cataclysm. Seeing the opening of BFA got me really hyped because I was like, sweet, a full-fledged lore. Like, we're gonna have some big epic battles. We haven't done that really before. We've had some stuff that's always happened in between expansions, like the whole Garrosh Horde and Alliance stuff that happened in MoB. It was sort of there but wasn't, and same thing with BFA. It was sort of there but wasn't. Feels like Miss Pandora 2.0 in that sense. But my reaction to Shadowlands was like night and day. I just was not excited for it at all. I wasn't excited for it because I think it's because of the way BFA has gone. Now, in beta, you know, plenty of people, I got access to beta. I gave responses. I gave feedback to things like Azerite gear of how it didn't feel. It wasn't a good idea to have people grind out Azerite levels over and over again. So you get a blue chest, you have 2 rings into it, you go into a mythic, you get an upgrade, you only have 1 or maybe no rings into it. That's not exciting, that's not fun. And that's sort of been BFA in a nutshell, especially with things like Titan Forging. And anyway, so it's come to this culmination of everything, right? 8.3 is the final patch. We got 2 reworked sort of zones for invasions. We got a gorgeous raid. I will say the raid's gorgeous. We got some subpar lore. And oh boy, what else did we get? We got, oh yeah, the death of an old god, which, you know, how many years of him, weaving tricks in and out? Probably what, 10,000 years was Deathwing corrupted back then? I think so. But all of this planning, all of this like mystery of like, you are my greatest champions. And it kind of felt like the Lich King, where he just like started raising us up from the dead, and he's like, "These are, haha, you brought my champions to me. They will do terror amongst the world. They are my greatest champions," etc., etc. And then we get to fight N'Zoth, and he's just like, "Yeah, you're weak. You're nothing." He's not like, "No, my champions, you don't know what you're doing," or he's like, "Yes, you're falling into my trap." It was 10,000 years, and Deathwing did more to the planet than he did. And the one thing that pissed me off, they're like, Ny'alotha is like a state of mind. And I was like, okay, so he has the power to invade everyone's mind and make us do crazy things, but he couldn't change more than 2 zones? You know, Deathwing broke out and changed the world. But he couldn't do any, like, I know he was the weakest, but they gave us such a hype up for him. They were like, he is the weakest old god, but it's weird that he might be the one to win. He might be the one to come out on top because he played the long con. Nope, he really didn't. He really didn't do much. And it's yeah, you could say it's always been that way. It's always been, we've had Yogg Saron kind of come out of nowhere. Cthulhu, same thing. But N'Zoth was hyped up and talked about for so long. The payoff was just not there. And I guess you could say, yeah, Sargeras was hyped up, the same length of time. A little bit. Would he have been hyped up a little bit less? No, I guess more because of the Warcraft. Like, we didn't really know about the old gods. So Sargeras was hyped up more, but he still stabbed the planet, which changed that forever. And he, at least we still got a planet and 3 unique zones. And a pretty cool raid, and some pretty cool lore. This was worse in every aspect. So I started off going into 8.3 with as much of an open mind as I can, because I saw, I didn't start playing 8.3 until after the cinematic for the raid came out. Like, my reaction to the raid was my reaction to not playing 8.3 at all. So I went in with an openish mind. You go to Uldum, you do that scenario in the Halls of Origination. You finish Uldum. I logged out because I was bored. The next day I came back in, went to Mogashin, or is it Mogashin Vaults the raid? No. Is it? I don't know. Anyway, went to the raid in Pandaria. It was, it was okay. We went to Vale of Eternal Blossoms. I did all that stuff. Went into Mogashin Vaults. Got back to Raden, logged out. The next day I came in. I went back to Uldum into the Halls of Origination again, and I'm just like, why? They reused a Cataclysm dungeon, not one, but twice, for 2 different scenarios, and then we went back into, again, another old raid, which still kind of had some cool stuff in it. My apologies for my phone. But it was still reworked. And there was just really not much payoff for it, there wasn't much in the way of these are all, of course, to help us learn the scenario that you go into, the horrific visions that's in Stormwind and Orgrimmar, so at least you got to see that. And one thing that I hated was I finished Uldum. I got a corrupted piece of gear off of the chest. So the chest that you get for completing these scenarios, I got a corrupted piece of gear. It was wrist. It was an upgrade. I threw it on, and my character has all this purple stuff, and I'm like, I don't really like that. And the corruption that I got was sucked. It wasn't that great. So I said, you know what? I want to go take this off, and talk to Mother, and I talked to her. And it required, I don't remember what the currency is, but it requires 5 of a currency that you get from Horrific Visions. And I was not happy. And the reason I wasn't happy was because I got a piece, I got an affix to an item that I had no control over, that is completely random, that changes my character's appearance, which isn't a massive deal, but that's, it is something that you can't get rid of. And it's something that you have to grind out, and not exactly grind, but you have to go get a currency to remove the piece of corruption upon a gear that you had no control over. And I'm just like, does Blizzard, do they lack critical thinking? Do they just, you should have just been able to just remove it. Just remove it, even if I had to pay gold to remove it. Why do I have to go grind another currency to remove a corruption off of a piece of gear that I have? And it all comes down to basically forced content, right? That's what it comes down to. They're like, we want people to do Horrific Visions. It's mandatory content, and people have to do it, and that's just the way it is. That's what it is. That's why it costs 5 of a currency instead of just gold, or just being like, no, I just want this removed. I want it cleansed. No, you have to pay for it, and you have to pay for it by doing mandatory content. And then we get to the whole alt-friendly thing. I remember BlizzCon, I believe it was 2018. There was a gentleman from Lightbringer, and he said, we play, and this is the quote, I remember it, we play alts to have fun, not to do chores. And Blizzard said, we agree, and we don't want you to feel like you have to log in and do chores. Then they make essences not account bound. They don't even make it easier to get. Most of the stuff that you have to do on a character, you hit max level, and there's all of these exclamation points that light up. And it's like, okay, well, then now you have to do the introductory to Darkshore. You have to do the introductory to 8.2 or 8.3. You have to go to Nazjatar, which don't get me started about Nazjatar. I hate in World of Warcraft that we have a follower that we have to babysit. It's a massive multiplayer online game. We should have each other to rely on. We don't need followers. And when that came out, I was like, oh, this is just... I was like, they're just testing this. And my friend didn't believe me. He's like, you think so? I was like, yeah, of course. They're just testing this. I said, it's going to be the next expansion. And then in Shadowlands, when they're talking about the Covenants, they're like, yeah, you'll have your follower. And it's very reminiscent of Nazjatar. And I just went... I said, I knew it. And I said, it's very bad design to have a follower. I don't want a follower. I don't want to have to do things. I don't have to have a follower to have to do things that I need. Like... And it comes back to the essences. Like, you get an essence because you have to progress through the quest line to get into I almost said the Eternal Palace. Is that it? If that is your best in slot essence, then you have to do all that stuff. Mandatory. Because, well, it's not mandatory, but your healing or damage or whatever might suck without it. And it's not the best one. I know it's not the best one. You could just say, well, and I know that's probably the rebuttal is, well, it's not the best one. So that makes my point invalid, but it doesn't. It doesn't make it invalid because there are still other systems or other things you have to do in order to get your best in slot essence. And it becomes Azerite traits and essences and all of these things that you have to keep track of. They said that they wanted World of Warcraft to be a game that you can just pick up, you can put it down and then pick it up and not have to worry too much. If you dropped it in 8.1 and you came back, holy lightning, the things you have to do. The things that you have to do, because there's really not too many catch-up mechanics on things, which isn't even like my gripe. My gripe is I did it on my main. I don't want to do it again. I just don't. I can't be bothered to do subpar content, and that's what 8.3 is, subpar. We got reworked zones. We didn't get anything exciting. The scenarios aren't even fun. They're just babysitting Magni, or well, I guess he's babysitting you. But that's what that is. It just becomes subpar content that I don't want to have to do over and over and over again. And the reason I have so many alts is because I just get bored. You get bored of your class, or your class gets nerfed too far. You know, your Feral Druid at the beginning of the expansion, or your an Enhancement Shaman. I think it was an Enhancement. And you just don't get invited to RPGs, or you don't get invited to higher end Mythic Plus because the community perception around your classes is garbage. I tried to play Feral in the first patch of Legion. I tried to do RPG in the first patch of Legion. It came down to me switching to Boomkin, doing less damage, simply because the perception around my spec was bad. And I know I'm talking about Legion, but you get the point where if they nerf an essence too far, you have to get another essence. They nerf your class too far, then you have to reevaluate your Azerite traits. You have to reevaluate all of that. Some of your best in slot gear will change. And it was never like that. In Classic, you know exactly where your best in slot stuff comes from. You feel complete. And I know Blizzard doesn't want you to feel complete because they want you to keep playing the game. But back then it was, okay, my main is tapped out. Well, maybe I can try something new with an alt. So alts became more enjoyable, more important. It became more about the journey of getting your best in slot pieces. Now it's, if you're like me, you do 14 mythics with one piece of gear. That is not fun. That is atrocious, and it is a stupid system. I miss challenge mode dungeons. I can't tell you guys how much I miss Mage Tower and challenge mode dungeons. And I know I didn't get to finish challenge mode dungeons, but I had a lot of real life stuff going on. It prevented me from finishing them. It was the one thing in WoW that I regret is not completing the challenge modes. But all of these things are adding up as to why retail is just becoming this system filled with gimmicks. And I'll talk about this more in a classic video I want to do. But a friend of mine and I had a conversation. On retail, well, he said on retail you can go from 1 to 120 without ever pressing the enter button. I'll do you one better. you can see the entirety of Battle for Azeroth's content without hitting the enter button. You can see every dungeon, you can see every raid, you can do every quest, every scenario without pressing the enter button. Can you do that on Classic? No. You can't. How are you going to tell somebody that you want to get into a dungeon? How are you going to tell somebody that you want them to come with you on a dungeon? How are you going to get into a raid? You can't do that on Classic. But on retail, you can. You don't have to talk to a single person. And I think that is a massive flaw in the game. I think they need to embrace the MMO. They need to stop turning it into a single-player RPG, which is how it feels that it's going that way. It absolutely feels like we're going to that direction. We're getting covenants, which are NPCs we deal with. I kind of like the class halls, but even then, it was a little bit too more on the NPC side. We're going to get a follower that we got to walk around with. We're going to do the Maw of Souls over and over again, which is basically just a mythic dungeon that changes its affixes and its bosses. It's just a repeatable piece of content that you're probably going to have to do. Spoiler alert. Another thing that sucked about the story, while I'm on that, I'm just going to digress a little bit. It sucks that Sarafang got his warrior's death and he's stuck in the Maw. That poor man. He's stuck in the Maw. Because they said everyone that died during the Fourth War is in the Maw. And I said, okay, sweet. All of that for him to just go to the Maw. It's like they could have just done it another time. But, you know. What else? 8.3. Yeah, the storyline just is not appealing to me either. The thing that upsets me about N'Zoth is there are so many things they didn't discuss. They didn't bring up North Dormu or Murozond. They didn't bring him up. They said he fell to Old God corruption, and we all assumed it was N'Zoth. It's possible it's somebody else. You know, Illyria talked about her, when N'Zoth died, the whisper she thought would get turned off in her head, or they would quiet down, but they've gotten louder. So perhaps Murozond's going to be corrupted by something else. But we got the Chromie scenario, which they never addressed. All we got is more hints of stuff that may never come to fruition. And I was praying that it was going more towards dragons, but they need it to go with Sylvanas because BFA ended in 8.2.5 and not in 8.3. What we have in 8.3 is just, it feels like a totally different expansion. A worse one, by the way. So, like, we have to go to Shadowlands now. It's a place I was hoping we wouldn't go. I was really hoping for at least something. I was hoping for some sort of payoff. I want us to get our asses kicked. Apologies for language. I want us to lose. I want that. I want us to be disgraced. I don't want to be a hero anymore. Like, I want to be a hero, but I don't want to be a general. I don't want to be this grand hero. I want us to be disgraced. At least throw us in jail at the beginning of the expansion and have us sort of redeem ourselves. Give me that. Give me something interesting. Give me a twist that actually is a twist. Stop twisting things over and over and over again and saying, oh, people are going to be shocked. And then you just go, well, this is stupid. This is boring. You know what the greatest twist of BFA was, though? Was that N'Zoth did nothing and we killed him. That was probably the greatest twist of BFA, was he did nothing and we killed him. We still have the sword in the planet, but Azeroth, I guess, is kind of healed. Azerothian, I guess her name is. I don't know. Rathion's back, which is cool. I always like dragon lore. I find dragon lore far more interesting than Shadowlands. Other than, you know, I don't care right now, and maybe I will in Shadowlands. I have to see more. But the direction that Blizzard's going is not healthy. I don't think it's healthy for the game. I like that it takes a little bit longer to do things. I was hoping tier sets would come back. I'm not overly thrilled anymore. And this is with Classic too, is I'm worried about what's going to happen after Classic. Are they just going to go into BC? Are they going to go into Wrath? Are they going to go into Kata? When does that end? But I'll talk about that later. So I guess just trying to put all my feelings and talk about everything about 8.3 and BFA in general is just, it started out so strong. They could have had the Horde and the Alliance do the schemy, scummy things that they were talking about, and no, the Alliance didn't do anything bad. The Alliance didn't do anything scummy. We could have had some really cool raids. Imagine if, like, Teldrassil was a raid. Imagine if, like, I guess we kind of raided Undercity, but, like, I would have liked to have seen, and they could have had a mage tower as well in BFA. We were literally fighting the opposing faction. You're telling me we couldn't have a general, our complete polar opposite, as an NPC that we kept meeting along the way, that ended in this culmination of this fight in the mage tower. Maybe even they were wearing the gear or the weapon that we would get from beating them. You're telling me they couldn't do that? Or that he became corrupted by N'Zoth? He was the one who kept the eye on, so he ended up, like, we ended up beating the Horde or whatever, and then he became N'Zoth's champion, and then you fight him there? You know, like, they could have had at least that type of NPC evolve, but they didn't do anything that's in depth. They didn't do anything deep. It's just all shallow. And I believe a lot of the criticism people have of BFA is completely valid. I think some of it, of course, some of it's a little bit overboard, but it's all completely valid. It feels like there's less and less to the game, and also more, if that makes sense. Like, the gimmicks. There's a lot more gimmicks in the game now than there ever used to be, and we didn't need these things. And the reason we didn't need these things is because of all of the issues that arose with them. You know, the Azerite gear became, you know, you need a neck with essences. The neck with essences brought up more questions of alts, and even more essences, and even more essences brought up balancing issues, and even balancing issues brought up classes that are sort of left in the dust, or ones that are favored far more than other classes. You see where I'm going? Wrath, what did you have? What kind of balancing issues did you have? Class abilities, right? Some classes were stronger than others. Did you have gear to worry about? Like, did you have neck essences and Azerite pieces and Azerite traits and all of this other stuff that we don't need in the game? We don't need these gimmicks. And I don't think Blizzard, like, as flawed as the gear, like the weapon, in Legion was, it was still far better than what we got in BFA. They actually took a step backwards in BFA, a massive step, and they could learn from it, but are we going to get one good expansion, one bad expansion, one good expansion, one bad expansion? Are they just going to keep, you know, skipping through that sort of formula? Because if so, I mean, if Shadowlands turns out to be great, then just don't buy the one after, and then just let that one be the one that you skip. What else about BFA? One thing is that they said that they learned from an expansion and they carry over to the next expansion. Tell me, how did they learn about Garrison mission tables and then Legion mission tables? How did they learn that was just to be nerfed and just basically not exist in BFA? Why was that a good idea to keep? Why is it there at all? It doesn't need to exist. We had world quests that we could have done. You could have put daily dungeon things in. You could, you know, and that was one thing that really surprised me, is that they didn't put a cap in. Like, they had your daily or whatever, but they didn't have a cap for doing mythic dungeons for, like, Azerite power. Like, they could have done that, but we just got, like, weird mission table missions, and, like, some of the mission table missions, again, this pisses me off. This is the thing I hate about NPCs in World of Warcraft. The mission table, okay, has a quest for the Alliance where they send special forces into Shadowfang Keep because they were gonna Azerite bomb Gilneas. I wanted to do that. Are you kidding me? Keyshawn gets to go to Shadowfang Keep and stop, like, them from nuking Gilneas, and I don't get to do that. You kept one of the coolest things. Like, that could have even been a dungeon. We've had that kind of dungeon before. We've had it in Warlords of Draenor, Upper Blackrock Spire. There is a big, what are they called? Starlights? I don't remember what they're called. The thing that they launched at Manaroth, and he, Grommash hit him in the head. But anyway, one of those things. They had that in WoD that was going to be launched at Stormwind. It would be cool to see, like, an Azerite nuke sitting there and that the Alliance takes it and they're like, what can we do with this? Boom, Azerite nukes something, and there's the scummy thing that the Alliance did. But you know what? No, we just got more. I could go on. I could go on, and I don't think I want to because it's just gonna hurt me more. I'm sorry, guys, that it's been so long since I talked to you all. But you can see why, because this video is long, and it's all over the place. I didn't want to script simply because then it feels more robotic. This feels more natural because I actually get a little bit more annoyed. And I know it's just retail. I'm just gonna stop playing. That's all there is to it. I'm not playing 8.3. I'm done. I'm gonna see more about Shadowlands. There are a couple YouTubers that I trust about their opinions. I trust them, and I'm gonna ask them, and I'm gonna make sure I keep asking to please be as critical as you can, because I need to know, because I trust their opinion. I need to kind of have them relay that information to me on if I should buy Shadowlands or if I should skip it. Because right now I'm saying skip it because BFA was just, I was so excited for BFA and it just like massive letdown. So I'll play Classic. I'll do a video on Classic. And I guess I will talk to you all later. I hope you're having a good 2020 because honestly it's been pretty garbage for me. But take care, everyone. I've been Tsar. Subscribe and like. Of course, you gotta say that, right? But that's what I'm, and I'll see you all later.